I would say if you're watching this or listening to this, you may be like me and you're a bit of an idealist. You are, you can see the potential in the world. You can see how if we just were able to exist from our hearts, if we were just able to commune together, the atrocities would shift on the planet. And this is what this transit over this next week is offering us. We are moving into this gene key, this gate 45, which is the gate of the queen or king, or it means gathering together. And this is really about what is known as heterarchy. And heterarchy is where each person has the chance to be themselves, where each person is responsible for themselves. And this is what this transit is offering you. See, it's in Gemini, and I find this quite fascinating because Gemini is the twins. And Gemini is known, I think, on some level, sometimes it's known as this like needing to move back and forth, or there's like split personality happening. And what I love about this archetype of the king or queen, this archetype of cosmic communion coming together, is that it shows us that that is actually beneficial. The ability to move between one perspective and another perspective and to dance in that place is actually what is needed. Heterarchy is when a system, we see this in nature, when a system self-organizes, that the information and resources of that system are distributed horizontally as opposed to vertically, up and down. And you see this through the forest and how we have really tall trees that grow really high. And these big tall trees that dominate a forested landscape require the mycelium, the little bugs, and all of the duff layer, what is being broken down and composted. They are all working together. One is not better than another. And this is what, when we look at what's happening in the world right now, this like, there is so much clashing. I mean, it's been going on for a while, but this gate, this gene key 45, this synergy that is being called forth in us is asking us to find self-responsibility, because the tree and the mycelium are not bothering themselves about what each other is doing. They are focused on their unique task, their individuality, and their gifts. And so this world that we are shifting out of right now is very focused on, what can you do for me? How can I control you? And this is really the shadow of this gene key. It's dominance. And there's this, in this dominance, there's this loyalty that is hooked in to family, bloodlines, governmental systems, and a lot of this is playing out in the world right now. And we're not always privy to this. But this dominance that happens is because there is this, I need to stay tight with this loyalty to these blood ties or this family that I'm not actually in alignment with. And so then what happens is you will either find yourself timid and you bow your head to authority. You allow your spirit to be dominated by others, or you compromise yourself, your soul, your spirit for the perceived protection of another. You abdicate your freedom, or you become obsessed with climbing the ladder. You assume power over others. You see yourself as better than others. Richard Rudd calls this pompous. You get pompous. I love that word. And so this time, this week, and remember that if you have this in your chart or you don't, it doesn't matter. This is an archetype that runs through the fabric of humanity. And this archetype is very important because each of these hexagrams that are connected to the 𝐸𝐴𝐻, and so they're very much rooted in our genetic memories and mechanism and how we operate in the world. This archetype is playing out on the world stage. And we shift out of the shadow when we bring light to it, when we acknowledge, oh, that's what's happening over there. Oh, that's what's happening in me, right? If you can say to yourself, I have compromised my own spirit. I have given up my own freedom for the illusion of safety. That begins the shift for you. This creates something that is very potent in your alchemical process of evolution. Because like anyone, like everything on this planet, you are here to evolve. Like the mycelium and the crickets and the trees, everything is here to evolve, including you and me. Our cells are evolving constantly within our body. They are expanding, dying, composting, being reborn. That's what happens to us. And this is when you step into this spiritual journey, whether it's through the lens of human design or the gene keys or deep earth-based medicine and a spiritual connection to the unseen realms. You are undergoing this death and rebirth cycle. And so this transit is going, okay, here's a moment for you to check in. Is this in your chart? Yes, it is. How did the shadow and the gift play out? Shadow is dominance. Gift is synergy. It's known as the king or the queen, which is all about being sovereign in self. But the thing about the king or the queen, the sovereign, it takes a tremendous amount of self-responsibility. To be divinely sovereign, we need to step out of the victim, perpetrator, rescuer triangle. We need to come into knowing everything that I choose in my life is for me, regardless of whether it is absolutely horrific or whether it is brilliant. Everything on this planet experiences horror and brilliance. That is just what we live in duality. And that pain, that horror, it's a pretty big word that I'm using there, but it's true. There's a lot of horror on this planet. And that's what's so important for us to recognize, is that shadow of dominance that is wreaking havoc across the world, havoc and things that we can't even see, that is not known as much in the collective consciousness. We need to be able to see it within ourselves. And so when you begin to take responsibility for self, when you begin to trust yourself, and when you begin to cultivate a deep devotional relationship with spirit, with Mother Earth, with the cosmos, you enter into cosmic communion. It is no longer about me versus them, you versus them, us versus them. it becomes this place of knowing that we are all here to work together. And when we can trust ourselves, trust others, and have a relationship with spirit, we self-organize into what we see in ecosystems that are undisturbed by humans' interference. These ecosystems that exist out there are self-organized. We have that potential within us. It's just that this mind, and as we come out of this industrial revolution that really valued this conveyor belt, start to finish type work, this is where we truly begin to reclaim that truth about us, where we move back into no longer needing the individuality to stand for, but knowing that we can be individual and collective, that all work together, and we don't lose our individuality while we do it. Because this true power, right, the true power of the divine sovereign, this true power comes from empowering another. And you really can only empower another when you feel powerful in yourself. I'm watching this play out in my own life right now. And I notice that when I start to feel unsafe, I want to control what other people are doing. And then I want them to feel powerful. Well, that is not a way to support someone to feel powerful. If you want safety in yourself, in your environment, if you want to see this beautiful and wild and devastating world shift, it's about finding safety, finding trust in self, finding connection with something greater than you. And it's about like really letting go of that control. So when we do this, because this 45 is about other, this 45 is about the tribe, it's tribal circuitry. It's about taking care of your people, your soul family. And when you begin to step out of that victim triangle, when you begin to empower yourself, when you begin to trust in spirit so that you can trust yourself to trust others, this is when you create resonance in your field and your soul family comes towards you. You magnetize your people. You magnetize what is required. This gift of synergy, this cosmic communion, is about celebrating people in their individuality and allowing people to be responsible for themselves. It's a very beautiful thing. We see this popping up here and there, right? We see this emerging in different places. And so I always like to give you a practical tool in these transits, because these self-care exercises, this practicality is very important. This is all just information until you start practicing it, until you devote yourself to this, noticing the shadow and bringing in the virtue. The shadow is in the virtue. You can't have the virtue without the shadow. And so my invitation, the invitation to you during this time, anytime you watch this or listen to this, is to begin noticing when you leave your own field, when you're noticing yourself out there in other people's business, or when you're giving up your own inner knowing. And then when you do that, you want to gather your energy back to you. And you can do this by walking on the earth. You can do this by placing your hands on your body. That immediately brings you back into you. You can do this by taking a breath, feeling your root, feeling the earth rising up to meet you and saying, I call all my energy back to me now. And this takes practice. It takes a devotion to wanting this, a desire for wanting something different for yourself and then the world. But the thing is that when we shift out of these shadows ourselves, we create ripples. And some people won't believe this, and that's okay. I've seen it. I've seen it happen in my family. It's possible. When someone is so dedicated to their own transmutation of the shadow, and they sit with the knowing of the potential virtue, knowing that the shadow will always, it's going to come up as long as we are in this dualistic world, that it creates change, you will create change. You will contribute back to your tribe. You will magnetize your right people, your right place to you. It's all for you. Everything in this world is here for us to transmute. One of the biggest lies that we've ever been told is that we are not powerful. It's one of the biggest lies. And so when you decide that you're powerful, when you become your divine sovereign self, when you begin to trust yourself and spirit and others, it's much easier to trust others when you're in connection to spirit, because that's who you lean on. You're not leaning on others to give you that safety. You lean into spirit. This is when your world shifts.